welcome to Jim's EV Adventures. I'm Jim, and we're going from point A to point B. So climb in. Let's go. Today we will be covering the proliferation of misinformation, disinformation, and outright lies on various YouTube channels around this platform. We're going to observe, we're going to analyze, and then we're all going to know the truth about these various YouTubers. So sit back and grab a coffee or another beverage, and let's get started. Shall we? First of all, let's observe 5 of the most popular YouTube channels there are out there in the anti-EV world, and take a look at what their spins are. And I'm going to start out with what I consider one of the biggest EV haters that I can find in all of YouTube. And there are literally hundreds to choose from. And the guy that's in lead for this contention is M-Guy Australia. His About section reads like Anti-EV 101. It says, and I'm going to read it here, EVs are not the answer. I'm a Brit in Australia with a Porsche 981 Boxster and an MG Midget from 1971. EV free zone. That's the description for this guy's channel. Apparently, he doesn't realize it, but EVs are living rent-free in his mind because about all he ever does is talk about how bad EVs are for the planet, for the world. Here are a few titles, and I'm going to have to read these again as well. Ultimate Killjoy, the grim reality of an EV road trip. Mr. M. Guy, you have no clue, zero clue about the reality of an EV road trip. You've probably driven an EV around the block maybe once, and you probably know a few people with EVs, and you take some of their stories and you blow them out of proportion. So I've done several road trips in my EV, and you can go back and watch all the videos on that from my perspective. So that's just malarkey. Another title that he has is Porsche Turns Back to Combustion. Really? Hey, Mr. M. Guy, have you ever heard of the car called the Porsche Taycan? It happens to be an EV, and it's a very good EV. So I don't think they've turned back to combustion. They may have slowed down a little bit for building EVs for a little while they get their footing and get a little more experience in making them better, but I doubt they've turned their back on it. So here's one of the best videos, and I'm going to read the title so I don't get it wrong. It's kind of hard for me to hold my emotions back on this one. What the Trump presidency means for EVs. Listen to me very carefully, Mr. M. Guy. You have no say, zero, on what goes on in the politics of the United States of America. You're a Brit stuck in Australia, and there's probably a pretty good reason that they banished you from the main island. But the fact of the matter is, I'm an American. I get to say what goes on in this nation. You don't. So I would advise you to keep your British mouth shut. That's all I'm going to say. In summary, about 30 to 40% of M. Guy's videos are about how bad EVs are. So they are obviously living rent-free in his mind. I would challenge him to a debate, but arguing with people like M. Guy is like playing chess with a pigeon. All they do is knock over the pieces, crap all over the board, and strut around like they already won the game. So I'm not going to waste my time with this guy. This is the one and only time I will ever mention his name on this channel. He's not worth it. And his information is wholeheartedly incorrect. So now moving on to another of my favorite anti-EV YouTube channels, Scotty Kilmer. Here's exactly what I think about Scotty Kilmer. I'm not going to waste my time with this clown. Ben Sullins has already trimmed his ego down to size anyway. If you want to watch some of Ben Sullins' videos about Scotty Kilmer, you're welcome to. Next is another Aussie expert. His name is John Cadigan. Auto expert John Cadigan. He does know a lot about cars, I will give him that, but when he tries to apply his expertise to EVs, he falls flat on his face. Some of the titles of his videos, and again, I'm going to read directly from the paper here. New green car sales records or bad plan doomed to fail. Well, I think it's probably a pretty good plan. You see, in the free world, we live in what is called a free market economy. People will make the decision on what kind of car they will drive, not you and not those who are like you who are out there poo-pooing everything EV. You don't get to make that choice. Another was tax breaks on the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle will end soon. Here's what you need to know. I've already talked about what I think about these tax incentives. I can't speak to any other nation other than the United States of America and the $7,500 tax break. I think anytime you give a taxpayer a tax break, letting them keep their money, that's a good thing. But even if they come to an end, which they probably will, it does not matter because EVs are now on price parity with ICE vehicles. So it doesn't matter. Another one is straight talk about lithium-ion battery safety. Well, we all know that he's talking about the fact that a lithium-ion battery can go into thermal runaway and melt down and cause all kinds of problems. But what he does not tell you in his videos is that an internal combustion engine vehicle is 60 times more likely to catch fire than an EV. And the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle is 130 times more likely to catch fire than a pure EV. These are things that he's not sharing with you. So the final one is EV transition. Can the grid cope? The truth about electric utopia. Well, first of all, you wouldn't know the truth if it jumped up and bit you in your Aussie butt. You just don't understand the grid. You also failed to mention that 10 to 15% of the electrical power generated around the world goes into the refining, distribution, and pumping of your precious petrol into your car. So you remove that 10 to 15% and it more than powers an entire country's worth of electric vehicles. So you need to get your facts straight before you pop off at the mouth about something for which you have no clue that you should be talking about. And just because you do know quite a bit about ICE cars does not make you an expert on all cars. It certainly does not make you an expert on electric vehicles. And if he were half as smart as he thought he was about EVs, he would be twice as smart as he really is. So, Joe Cadigan, auto expert, no, you're not an auto expert. You may know internal combustion engines, but you know nothing about EVs. So quit popping off at the mouth. Now the fourth one I've talked about before in a past video. It's Uncle Tony's Garage. Uncle Tony reminds me of that hateful uncle that you just want to at every family get-together because he's a jerk. And that's all I have to say about that pile of I do not trust a word he has to say about EVs. He knows zero, just that he likes to bloviate about something that threatens his expertise. Let me say this to Tony, and I'm going to make it very clear, Uncle Tony. I have driven ICE cars for 1 million miles, and I now have more than 100,000 miles driving an EV. Which of us knows more about an EV its daily operations, the ins and outs of living with one, it certainly is not you. I doubt you've actually driven one around the block, and if you have, you're hiding it from everybody else. So I say to you, you just stay in your lane and keep talking about the internal combustion engine. I will stay in my lane, but I have to remind you, Uncle Tony, that I'm also a mechanic. So don't show up at a battle of the wits unarmed. That's all I'm telling you. Now let's move on to number 5. And this one is going to get some real good attention. It's Car Coach Reports with Lauren Fix. Lauren Fix has been around the block a few times, pun intended, but apparently it was the wrong block because she's come to rest at the wrong address in one of her videos. That address is, I don't know a thing about EVs, but I will waste my viewers' time pretending like I do know. Well, that address doesn't matter. In a video that is entitled, and again, I've got to read this, Breaking, Government Cheating Scandal Unveils EVs as Massive Scam. I'm going to take my time so I get this right. And I'm going to read directly from the transcript of this video. The government and the Department of Energy colluded to rig estimated gas mileage from EVs to look 7 times more efficient than gas-powered cars, but they're not. This is a cheating scandal the government has created to push electric cars and lie to consumers. This is illegal because without the multiplier, the Transportation Department's proposed rules are completely unattainable. Consumers were scammed with their tax dollars. She goes on to say, under a Department of Energy rule, car makers can arbitrarily multiply the efficiency of electric cars by 6.67. This means that although a 2022 Tesla Model Y tests at the equivalent of about 65 miles per gallon in the laboratory, roughly the same as a hybrid, it is counted as having an absurdly high compliance value of 430 miles per gallon. That number has no basis in reality. 2 things, Lauren, 2 things. In that last section that I just quoted you in, there is 0 evidence or any backing of the claim that you said that the Tesla Model Y only gets 65 miles per gallon in a laboratory. That is a lie. And the second thing is, there is 0 evidence that the Model Y is counted as having 430 miles per gallon. That's your second lie, all in the same paragraph. 2 lies in 1 paragraph. So who's lying? Is it the government lying, or is it you that's lying, Lauren? I have proven mathematically and scientifically on more than one occasion that EVs operate at 2 to 3 times less expense than that of an ICE vehicle. I have proven more than one time that my Bolt EUV, mine, gets 115 miles per gallon equivalent, and that's on 1 gallon of gas. That's an average, and some days it's more like 130 miles. I've proven that, not only to myself, I've put it in videos before. This is the problem with Lauren and the other 4 channels that I've mentioned. They get on their popular YouTube channels and from their bully pulpit, and they rant about things that are just not true. They lie to your face, straight to you. This is why Jim's EV Adventures was created. It's to counter the hoopla. It's to counter the misinformation, the disinformation, the lies, whatever you want to call it. And we'll talk about that more later. And then you have the likes of Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear and Grand Tour, who absolutely hates EVs and denigrates anyone who owns one. You have John Stossel from ABC News fame on his YouTube channel spreading misinformation like peanut butter on a sandwich made for Elvis Presley. And one of my favorite all-time representatives is Representative Thomas Massey, who pukes out more lies about EVs in the sacred halls of Congress as if he is the only person in Congress that understands anything about EVs. All three of these celebrity/politician types are provably in the pocket of big oil. Just ask to see their ledgers and they will close you down like they're shutting the hatch on a submarine. Tighter than Scrooge's purse on Christmas Eve. They'll run. Let's analyze this. If these 5 YouTube personalities and these 3 celebrity types want to take on any of the videos that I've ever produced, they're free to do so. I challenge them to. But I doubt any of them have the intellectual capacity to do any real, true, scientific, or unbiased analyses of anything I've ever said. So there's no worries there. When anyone goes into the public spaces and refuses to state their sources or refuses to do any analysis of their own, then it is obvious that they are biased, which leads to this question that I'm sure every one of you are asking at this point in time, even those who support me. Is Jim's EV adventure biased? The truthful answer is yes, I am biased. But here's where I use facts to back my bias. Fact number 1 is I am not anti-ICE. I know the world cannot immediately cease operations of all internal combustion engine cars and switch from fossil fuels to renewables for energy production. I know that. Fact number 2, which proves that my bias is backed with scientific information, is that I look at all the facts and base my analysis both on my experience in an ICE car and an EV. Most, if not all of these subjects that I have mentioned have only dabbed in EVs at the best. Or they've based their information on what they've heard from other people. Or worse yet, they've taken isolated instances of poor performance in the electric vehicle segment and applied it across the board to all EVs. That would be like me saying this: ICE cars are dangerous and should be banned because they catch fire 60 times more often than electric vehicles. Now, the 60 part time of that statement is factual. It is a fact that they catch fire 60 times more often than EVs. But it's an emotional assertion that they should be banned. Analysis? Either do all the analysis, get the facts, or just shut your mouth. It's as simple as that. I prefer the EV, but I'm not so biased that I would never drive another gas-powered car. That would be stupid. But I can tell you this: I will never own another ICE vehicle as long as I live. So, if any of these YouTubers, celebrities, or politicians would try to do what I'm doing, I would have nothing to say about them. But the fact of the matter is they do not. They get out there and spread this misinformation like wildfire. They bloviate, they spread lies, and they do it like a hot dog salesman going up and down the aisles at a baseball game, screaming, "Hot dog! Get your hot dog here!" You know, in actuality, everything these 5 do makes me just simply want to puke. It's disgusting. Now let's get into the no. I am going to focus on Lauren Fix and her video about the scam of the EV and the assertion that the Model Y only gets 65 miles per gallon, the same as a hybrid. And they burn more energy than a gas car in the long run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some basic math up on the screen, and I'm, again, going to look at my paper here so I get this exactly right. Gasoline is said to have 33.7 kilowatt hours of electricity in every 1 gallon. The Model Y battery for most models is 75 kilowatt hours, plus or minus 5, depending on which model you get. That is the gas equivalent of 2.23 gallons. The range of the Model Ys varies from 260 to 330 miles, but I'm going to sit right in the center of that at 300 miles to make it easy. So the mile per gallon equivalent is 134.53 miles per gallon equivalent, based on 33.7 kilowatt hours in a gallon of gas and the fact that it is a 75 kilowatt hour battery. It's basic math. So where in the name of Daniel Boone does she get 65 mile per gallon? Nobody knows, because she didn't state her source. So that's only part of the equation. Let's look at the second part of that. Let's look at the carbon part of that equation. 2.23 gallons equals 43.82 pounds of carbon dioxide for 300 miles driving. That's not bad. As for those of you who know me, I put that out there to mislead everyone. It's not the correct number. It's not a correct comparison. In order to find out how much 75 kilowatt hours of electricity actually uses in the form of carbon, you have to use the EIA, that's the Energy Information Administration's numbers for the energy mix here in the U.S., which is 0.86 pounds of CO2 per kilowatt hour generated across all of the power generated in the United States for all energy types. So if that's the number, then 75 kilowatt hours at 0.86 pounds per kilowatt hour is 64.5 pounds of CO2. Now, for those of you who are keeping score, and I expect that's most of my ICE friends, that's almost 21 more pounds of CO2 than 2.23 gallons of gasoline. Win for gasoline, right? Yeah, the EV uses more energy and pumps out more carbon than the ICE car. That's what the ICE enthusiast is probably thinking right now. And they're probably wetting their pants, screaming at the screen, "See, I told you so." But not so fast. The EV still wins when you realize that a 300-mile trip in an ICE car, getting 30 miles per gallon, is 10 gallons of gasoline, which is 195 pounds of CO2, not 64.5 pounds of CO2. Bottom line is the EV wins this race every single time, and anyone with 1 eye and half sense can do the math and figure this out themselves. The bottom line is this: the EV can go 4 times farther on 3 times less energy and 3 times less CO2 than the ICE car ever can. So Lauren, you can spin that information any way you want to, but you cannot change the laws of physics, and you cannot change the actual factual and truthful information that I've just presented in my video. You can try, but you just will not succeed. Your assertion that the Model Y only gets 65 miles per gallon is an outright bald-faced lie. You are wrong, and the sad thing is that those who follow you believe this lie. That's pathetic. And this is the state of the internal combustion engine electric vehicle debate here in the United States, in fact, the world. Liars supporting ICE vehicles have the bully pulpit on YouTube because of those in positions of power who are seeking to fill the airways with disinformation. And when I say power, I'm talking about the oil and gas industry, the fossil fuel cartels, as I call them. They are paying for this disinformation to be flooded into social media everywhere. Lauren and those who do that are spreading what I call fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD. They are FUD mongers of the highest caliber. And all you have to do is watch one of their videos and do a truthful, honest analysis about it. Now, the conclusion and promise. For those of you who want to make EV a point of politics, I'm going to say this as simply as possible and very much directly and to the point. It's dumber than socks on a bullfrog. The automobile should be the most apolitical thing that we can all agree on. Being efficient should not be poo-pooed. Being greener is not a bad thing. Since when is it a bad thing to make less CO2 over the life of an inanimate object? Something like your cell phone. Since when is that a bad thing? Please, somebody explain that to me. And I mean now, explain that to me. And the pollution. It's not just the air and the CO2, but the water and the land. Those massive plastic islands that we have floating in our oceans all around the world are not a byproduct of electricity. They are a byproduct of oil. Period. I could literally go on for hours about the dozens and dozens of YouTube channels and the FUD-mongers out there who are polluting our social media spaces, but I don't need to. You do. As I've said many times, take everything I say with a grain of salt, but take everything you hear from the other side with a bag of salt. Do your own analysis. Check the data yourself. Become analytical. Being an analytical thinker is not a bad thing. Then and only then will you be able to safely wade through the rivers of FUD that are flowing from these other spaces. And with that, I just want to say I appreciate your time and trust, and I'm glad you've made it to the end, but please remember to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're so inclined, and treat everyone with kindness. Put a smile on your face. Help somebody today and pay it forward when someone does the same for you. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you all real soon or somewhere along that route from point A to point B. Take it easy, everybody.